a prophet in truth, that we will debar you from whatever we debar our woman from. Have confidence in us, O Messenger of Allah. By Allah, we are genuine fighters and quite reliable in war. It is a trait passed down to us from our ancestors. Then Abu interrupted and said, O Prophet of Allah, between us and the Jews there are agreements which we would then sever. If Allah grants you power and victory, should we expect that you would not leave us and join the ranks of your people, meaning Quraysh? The Prophet smiled and replied, Nay, it would never be. Your blood will be my blood. In life and death I will be with you, and you with me. I will fight whom you fight, and I will make peace with those with whom you make peace. After the negotiations concerning the conditions of allegiance had ended, and all of the audience were unanimously agreed to ratify it, two men of the early generation of converts who had embraced Islam in the 11th and 12th years rose to their feet to apprise the others of the serious step they were about to take. So that they could give their pledge fully, aware of the whole affair, and consequently be ready for the sacrifice they were expected to make. In this context remarked, O you Prophet of Hazraj, do you know the significance of the pact that you are entering into with this man? You are, in fact, avowing that you will fight. You will fight against all and sundry. If you fear that your property will be at stake or the lives of your nobles will be endangered, then leave him now, because if you do this after the pledge, it will be degrading for you, both in this world and the world to come. But if you think that you can carry out what you are called upon to do, in spite of the loss of precious lives and poverty, then undertake this heavy responsibility, and I swear by Allah that herein lies the good of this world and that of the next. They replied, We have already considered the loss of property and the murder of our notables, yet we pay him allegiance. But what is our reward if we observe all the items of this pact? The Prophet replied, Paradise is in store for you. And then they asked him to stretch out his hand, and they all stretched out their hands and took the pledge. Only at that time did Asad bin Zurara come to realize the people's readiness for sacrifice in the cause of Allah. On the authority of Jabir, who said, When we started to pay allegiance to the Prophet, stood up and gave the following short address, Take it easy, people of Yathrib. We have not covered that long distance, except because we have had deep belief that he, Muhammad, is the messenger of Allah. We are already convinced that following him entails departure from the pagan Arabs, even if it were at the risk of our life. Should you persevere in this course, hold fast to it, and your great reward is placed in the hand of Allah. But if you are caught in fear, I admonish you to give it up just now, and then you would be more excusable by Allah. With respect to the two women, the pledge was taken orally, for the Prophet had never shaken hands with a strange lady. The Prophet then asked the group to appoint 12 deputies to preach Islam to their people in Medina, to shoulder the responsibility of implementing the articles of this pledge. and to guide the respective men of their own tribes in matters relating to the propagation of Islam. The deputies elected were 9 from Al-Khazraj, as 3 others were from Al-Aws. Once again, those 12 men were sworn to act as surety over the affairs of their people, just as the Christ's disciples did, and the Prophet would act as surety over his people, meaning all the Muslims. Somehow or other, the news of these secret desert meetings with the Madanis leaked out. The Prophet immediately knew that it was a certain pudgy, ugly devil, inhabited in Al-Aqaba, who discovered the meeting, and he threatened to settle his account with him as soon as possible. On hearing this, by Allah who has sent you in truth, we are powerful enough to put the people of Mina, the Qurayshites, to our swords. Tomorrow, if you desire, the Prophet said, we have not been commanded to follow that course. Now, back to your camps. They went back to sleep till morning. No sooner did Quraysh hear of this treaty than a kind of trouble-provoking tumult began to mushroom in all directions. They realized quite fully that an allegiance of this sort is bound to produce far-reaching ramifications of direct impact on their lives and wealth. The following day, a large delegation comprising the leaders and arch-criminals of Mecca set out for the camp of the Madanis to protest severely against the treaty. They addressed the Madanis, O people of Khazraj, it transpired to us that you have come here to conclude a treaty with this man, Muhammad, and evacuate him out of Mecca. By Allah, we do really hold in abhorrence any sort of fight between you and us. The Madanis, polytheists, having known nothing about the secret taken pledge, began to swear by Allah and answered in good faith that there was no truth in the report. Abdullah, a Madani's polytheist, refuted their allegations, denouncing them as null and void, claiming that his people would never initiate anything unless he gave them clear orders. The Madani's Muslims, however, remained silent, neither negating nor confirming. The Qurayshite leaders seemed to be almost convinced by the arguments presented by the polytheist and went back home frustrated. However, they did not fully acquiesce in the words they heard. They began to scrutinize the smallest details and trace the minutest news till it was established beyond a shadow of doubt that the pact did take place, but that was after the Madanis pilgrims had left Mecca. In a fit of rage, they pursued the pilgrims but did not succeed in catching hold of anyone except Saad. They subjected him to unspeakable tortures, but he was later rescued by Al-Mutim, with whom he had trade relations. That is the story of the second Aqaba pledge, later known as the Great Aqaba Pledge, effected in an atmosphere of love, allegiance of mutual support between Madanis believers and weak Meccan Muslims. This new spirit of affection, rapport, and cooperation could never be attributable to a fleeting whim. On the contrary, it totally derived from an already deeply established approach. Belief in Allah, His Messenger, and His Book. It was a belief so rooted in themselves that it managed to stand immune to all powers of injustice and aggression, and could be translated into miracles in the practical aspects of action and ideology pursued. That sort of belief was the real instrument for the Muslims to record in the annals of history unprecedented breakthroughs. We are also sure that the future will always remain wanting as regards those great achievements carried out by those great men.